pressures?
Let me see. What pressures? I would definitely say in regards to parenthood, how we actually parent our children or lack thereof parenting, excuse me, our children. I would say society has placed a really big boulder on, especially in the African American community, because a lot of us, we were like raised from our grandparents. So me being raised by my grandparents, my parenting may be a little bit different than hers, but those expectations of how my child should be based off of the way that I parent them are still there. And even if it's not so much from society, I think I get a lot of pressure internally when it comes to how I parent my children. Like my aunt may say something, my grandmother may say something, because they have a way in which that they believe a child should be trained. You know, and God forbid my kids don't result that type of training, then they will come and they will say something to me. So I believe definitely pressure, but I would say I focus more on internal pressure. I don't really hear the noise outside of my family.
So, and it's interesting too, because some of that, the noise that you hear could be their own experiences or what they may have. I know for me growing up, my grandmother was a big part of my upbringing. But because I lived with my mom and my dad, it was mostly my mom, you know, that I experienced whatever pressures from. So I found myself, to your point, in raising my daughter, leaning towards some of that. And like we talked about in the last episode, those things that you experienced growing up, you want to be able to sow into your kids, train up a child, the positive things, but you got to be leery and aware of those things which probably were a little counterproductive in your upbringing too. So, you know, when we were talking the last time too, T, you had mentioned about how other people, right? You've experienced a situation where maybe other people are not taking advantage of the relationships that they have with their own kids or not rearing them in the best way, and you can't have kids. Do you feel any kind of way sometimes when you hear the news about somebody who's pregnant or somebody who's, you know, just had a child or anything like that? Is there any sort of experiences that you get with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think my honest answer to that was, you know, sometimes I feel a bit of jealousy. Because And it's not for all people. For the most I know, if I was the judge, you know, a judge of character, I would say, like, you don't even need kids. Like, you know, you don't take care of yourself. And, you know, the kids are home by themselves all the time. Or, you know, you see the kids that's hungry and the people that's, like, killing their kids or molesting their kids or selling their kids to trafficking. And so it's like, why do you have kids? And why do you keep having kids? Like, why, God, are you giving them all of these blessings when people who could take care of the kids the right way aren't given the ability to? And so my honest answer is that I feel a little jealous and I feel a little upset with God because I'm like, why you're not picking me?
And I have to put something out there from my point. I don't understand people who don't. I'm going to switch it a little bit. People who don't want to have children. I judge people who don't. And I guess my view of society, you're a woman. You should have kids. You should have a family. And that's something that I believe that I need to work on. It's like, why don't you want kids? You know, like, why am I bothered by people who don't want kids? Some people really don't want any children, you know, for whatever reason, but I'm bothered by it.
But that's real, because I think sometimes if the person who said, but so to that point, if you ask the couple or the person or the woman, oh, when are you going to have kids? And their response is, oh, I don't want kids. Then it's the same reaction. Like, what? You don't want kids?
You don't want kids because, again, you're a woman. You're supposed to reproduce. Why don't you want kids? You're supposed to nurture. It's almost like, well, what's wrong with you? And I'm just being honest because, like you said, you are honest and jealousy comes up. So from another perspective, it's like, how don't you want to have kids? Like, that's weird to me.
So one of the things that I remember reading too, and it was relative to one's inability to have kids, and this might, you know, touch a few nerves. So I'm gonna apologize in advance a little, but when the woman, because it's a woman's right to choose, right? And that's what we push towards from even a political perspective. When a woman has chosen to have an abortion, and now, whether it's later on in life or whatever the case may be, she cannot reproduce. T, I'll start with you. is that okay? Like, should we feel sorry for that woman?
Right.
Did she take away her right to have a kid by choosing to terminate a pregnancy? Like, what's your feedback on that?
Oh, no, I feel like, no, I feel like we shouldn't look at that woman any different because no one knows the situation in which she decided to have the abortion. And so, if you were, so I'm going to be very transparent right now. So, I had been raped, and I ended up pregnant as a result of the rape. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to have this abortion because there's no way I will be able to look at this child every day and love it, knowing that it came from a person that I didn't want to have a child with. Mm-hmm. And I made a very conscious decision that was going to be my decision because I knew I wasn't strong enough mentally to be able to give love unconditionally to a child that I never really wanted. But God saw other ways fit, and I ended up having a miscarriage. And but that doesn't mean that I still shouldn't be able to have another child.
Right. Yeah.
And like people should look at me differently because of my decision to want to have an abortion. And it's no different than a woman who goes and has an abortion, on their own for whatever reason they choose to, not want that child. Because I know several people who's had several abortions who should be VIP people at the clinic.
Wow, look at that. You got a card.
Right, a punch card.
That's real.
It's free.
That's real.
And so, but they still have kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, how?
How?
So,
how is it possible?
So Kia, to your point, what's your feedback on that? Because I think that is what it is, and I'll be transparent. I've been there before. I've definitely taken that walk before to the clinic, and it was an experience for me. Regardless of what the circumstances may have been that put me in that particular situation, it was one that mine wasn't because of rape. It was just because of being careless, quite honestly. And so I felt a lot of guilt about it. Now, interestingly enough, from my perspective with kids, I have a daughter now, and that happened after that, but I actually didn't want kids. I was on birth control, 2 forms of birth control when I got pregnant with my daughter.
Wow.
So, but I outright, won't you do it? She was so meant to be here. She cracked all kinds of barriers. But for me, I didn't want kids. But I oftentimes thought about it now that I am re-engaging in a relationship. He's someone that may want kids. Yeah. He's good with my daughter, but he may want kids. So what's your feedback on that, though, for a woman?
First, I have to say thank you to T for being transparent, because that's one thing that the legacy is about. It's just being transparent for her sharing her story, with what she went through having a child, you sharing your story with what you went through, because there's someone out there who have experienced these same things. And to answer your question, no, I don't think we should. Well, number one, I don't think we should judge anyone. Who are we to judge? And we all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So I don't think we have that right to judge. And I believe we limit our thinking when we do judge, myself included. There's another, a thought process that you can have versus going to judgment. I have also had an abortion. I've also had a miscarriage. And in that season of my life, I think I was just so glad, and I'm be honest, to get rid of it because I was young. I wasn't ready. I was thankful for an out.
Yeah.
And that's to say that sometimes we go through seasons. My season of life now, I'm not looking for an out. I'm looking to provide. I'm looking to nurture. So that's why I think it's important that we can't judge, because depending on where you are in that walk in life, Planned Parenthood was my savior.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I was young. I didn't have to have a parent. I just had to have a few dollars. And if not, you can have some financial assistance. And that was where I was in my life. So there's probably another young girl going through that same thing. So who am I to judge?
Yeah. And so I think that goes back to our topic of society. And we put a lot of, there's judgment all around us.
All around.
When you look at magazines, when you look at the things that are on TV. So last weekend, I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it yet, but I went to see A Wrinkle in Time. And I
have not.
Okay. So T saw it. Kia hasn't, and I'm not going to give away the details in case, Kia, you want to go see it, which I think that it is an interesting movie to go see.
Okay.
As with your son, with your daughter, but especially with your daughter. One of the things I took away from it, though, and I'll just allude to, is that it definitely made you think and consider the negativity that we ingest and how we should try our best to stay away from it.
Okay.
And so in our conversation today, as we're talking about society and the things that, and there was a lot that went on in the movie.
Okay. A lot of gems, a lot of takeaways.
A lot of gems and a lot of things that I was like, oh, a lot of gems and a lot of coal.
Wow.
But I will say, as an overall, and so here's where I challenged myself, and T, I don't know if you felt the same way, but I said, after I thought those things, and the next day I said, see, this is why adults should not see certain movies.
Okay.
Because I critiqued it from a whole other mindset of my 35-year-old mind.
Right. How about
Whereas Camille left just feeling so energized.
Wow, that was
so
good.
Excited.
I really liked that movie.
It was a girl in it. She looks like me, sort of, kind of. But anyway, that's what it is. But to that being said, it's like we got to be careful of the negative things that we allow to enter into our spirits. And so, question, for you ladies next, for you, Kia, we talked last week about just overcoming, right? Starting over. So, what is it that we need to do? What is it that you would do when you're facing the pitfalls and the struggles and the things and the pressures of society? How do you silence the voices around you? I know you said that you tend to stay inward, but how?
Yeah. You know what? One thing that has really helped me, I have to go to my faith and my relationship with God. So I can either identify with who the world says that I am, or I can identify with who the word or who my faith says that I am. Right. So I actually, have a practice. You have to have a practice, because we live in the world, and God talks about, be not of this world, but be transformed. You can't be transformed if you're not in a place of transformation.
Yeah.
So you have to be in a place where you are being fed intentionally that positivity, where you're intentionally seeking it out, and where you're in a place where it's just automatically coming to you. So I think you got to be intentional about what you ingest.
Yes.
I mean, it's simple. We all are ingesting something, but some people are just not intentional. I personally, I don't watch the news. I'm very careful about social media. So if a storm is coming tomorrow, I probably won't know about it unless you maybe post it on Facebook or my grandma call me and tell me, because I try to steer clear of negativity, because it does skew my judgment.
Yep.
It does change my perspective.
It does.
It influences it, and then that means I got to work a lot harder to shift my mind to think something that is righteous and that is right and according to what the word says.
So you said something there, influence, right? And so T, from your perspective, especially with the line of work that you do, right? So you are constantly around some kind of negative trauma, some kind of trauma. And, quite honestly, God has gifted certain people with certain advantages, because you truly are amazing with it. Even with the work that you're doing with Love Advocate as a consultant, going around doing training with different organizations to make sure that they are mentally capable of servicing these individuals. How, in all of that, do you maintain a sense of peace and presence and not get lost?
Right. And be non-judgmental.
Yeah, and not be non-judgmental. How do you do that?
I think the first piece about the not being judgmental is that I have been able to identify with every population that I have served. And so, because I'm able to see myself,
that empathy.
Different distinctions, different degrees, but I see myself there, and so I can't judge someone when I could be them, should be them, or them. And so that allowed me to not judge, but to offer my assistance and my services to them.
Right.
Okay.
And to stay grounded, it took me a while to get there, because before I stayed grounded because I was an addict, and I fed by all kinds of Percocets, Real, Israel's and all of the other pain medication that I became addicted to. And so now that I'm not in that space, I have to stay grounded by my